Today we're going to be changing the brake pads in our 08 Tahoe. So I've got two rotors here because I'm going to do the rotors as well, and a set of brake pads. I would suggest going with a nicer set of brake pads and rotors so you're not doing this on a regular basis. For tools, I'm going to use an array of wrenches. I've got a breaker bar out here. I'm also going to use this tool here. This is a brake caliper compressor, so I can compress the calipers back when I'm putting in the new pads. And I've got a little bit of brake cleaner here as well. So let's jack this thing up and get started. Now, before I jack this up, I'm going to want to go ahead and loosen my lug nuts. Here we go. I'm going to go ahead and jack this up. Because I'm using a jack on the ground, I've put a LVL board under here actually to give me a little more stability under the jack. I'll go ahead and get this raised and finish taking off the wheels. You could do this with two jacks. It's always better for stability. And remove the tire. Okay, so the first thing we're going to remove are these 19mm bolts right here, and then there's one on the underside here, and that holds the caliper in place. So I'm going to go ahead and remove those using a 19mm wrench. And loosen them with a breaker bar. Now that I've got them loose, that one's almost finger loose. And there goes the caliper. What I'm doing is I'm just prying the old pads out. There they are. They're worn, but they're not as worn as I thought they would be. Of course, this inside brake pad is worn a little more than the outside brake pad. Okay, so to remove the rotor, there's a little star screw right here, which I broke loose. You don't want to forget to have a tool to get this out. I'm doing this at home, so I have tools all over the place. When I ran into that little screw, it wasn't a big issue. And then I'm going to go ahead and remove this. Those are on there pretty tight. So I'm going to use my breaker bar. Now 18mm actually works a little better. These bolts back here. Alright, now this rotor, set the caliper back up here. This rotor should just come right off. And I'm going to line up this new rotor so that little hole, this is all lined up perfectly. Just placed my star screw. Here it is. Get that on nice and tight. Okay, so that's on. Now, our new brake pads come with these new, I call them squealers, because when your brakes get low, they start squealing. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to replace those with new ones. I'm going to go ahead and reinstall this. Helps if you know which way it came off. Now, my wife actually came to me one time and said that her brakes were making a bunch of cluttering noise. And when I took it in there, it turned out that the brakes were falling apart. And for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put my breaker bar back on and tighten these back down, because you don't want your calipers falling apart on you. Okay, so we've got our rotor in place. Now it's just a matter of doing the pads. First thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to loosen up my fluid. That way when I compress my calipers, I've got room to expand. Now I get to use this fancy thingamagogger. What I need to do is compress the calipers back in so I can fit in new brake pads. So I'm going to take an old brake pad and I'm going to crank down on this tool. This is going to push my calipers back in for me. Might go over here on one side, crank that side in, over on the other side, crank that side in, come back over here, this side a shot. Basically what I'm doing is I'm just going back and forth on the two calipers, compressing them slowly in. Now we've got our calipers pushed back in. I'm going to go ahead and take my new brake pads. Make sure they're good and clean. There we go. There's one, there's two. Now let's take our caliper and put it back on. Okay. We're just putting these bolts back in place here. And if you remember, these top bolts are 19 millimeters. Make sure we torque it down good and tight. So we've got our new rotor on, our new brake pads on. I'm going to go ahead and put the wheel back on. I just like changing a tire or changing a tractor tire. When I screw these in, I'm going to put them in across from each other and tighten down diagonally. That way I can help make sure that I'm putting my wheel on straight. The wheel on, go ahead and lower your weight slowly. And then tighten them down. Voila. One of the things I try and do on Ranch Hand Tips is explain the mistakes that I make so that you won't make them at home. Rookie move brakes, there's two brakes that go on the front of these. This first one has a curved edge. It kind of curves in with this. The back brake is flat. Now I accidentally put two front pieces on this brake set. So I'm going to go in here, remove the one I did incorrectly. And you can see how this one is rounded, and that's made to fit on the front piece here. And this piece that's not rounded, it's made to fit on the back side. Thought I was done with this tire, got all the way to the other side, and realized I had mixed up my brake pads. And that is one way to cost you about 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes when doing a repair like this. Simply not paying attention to what you're doing. Now that I've got that fixed, I'll go ahead and reassemble this wheel and finish up on the other side. Well, with no help from my rookie move, I finally got everything back together, and I re-screwed on the top to my fluid. I'm going to push my brake pedal a few times until it gets hard. Go ahead and start the engine. Just pump it again a few more times. Thing appears to be working.